Good morning, everyone. Today's Tuesday, and you may think that it's another day when we start talking. We had to change the subjects of the days this week. We had a few speakers who had some personal issues. So we are carrying on and changing gears a little bit. So today we're going to be talking about overcoming objections. This is going to be a great class. Stacy has written a module that's in Jostle called Words That Work, with scripts for every occasion that you might want to know. If you're wanting to have the manual that goes along with today, it's actually day 8. But I want to just say that parts of the manual for day 8 we're going to use on January 18th when we talk about cold calling and FSBOs and expireds. But today, as I said, we're going to concentrate on overcoming objections, and we're going to talk about the scripts that go along with that as well. So since we switched days this week, today was going to be mortgages, and that will be tomorrow, which will also be very informative to talk about Mortgage 101, to talk about how to educate your buyers when they're thinking of starting to look, how important it is to get all of the work done with a mortgage person ahead of time, and so that'll be tomorrow, and we'll talk about that then. So let's get going on Overcoming Objections 101. And you can follow along with us here. Some people to follow when you're thinking about the thoughts of overcoming objections are David Knox, Mike Ferry, Tom Ferry, Darley Davis, Dirk Ziller, and Brian Buffini. Objections are opportunities. That's looking at something the glass half full. And we're going to talk a lot about that. It's all about how you listen and how you respond to whatever the objections are. When a buyer or a seller gives an objection, he is presenting you with an opportunity to close. So think about that. Sometimes you might make more out of what the objection is than it needs to be, but you need to listen. And that's our next 2 slides. This is a really important facet of objection handling. Make sure that you hear clearly what the person is saying. If you interrupt the objection or interpret it wrong, the answer you give, no matter how eloquent, will not be sufficient to overcome their area of concern. So let me go to the next slide and say it even clearer. Confirm what their objection is to ensure you understand it. So one of the quotes that I always see is, listen as twice as often as you speak. In the objection, what you want to do is listen, not interrupt, and affirm what they're saying. By acknowledging and affirming whatever their concern is, you're saying, I understand what you're saying. I hear what you're saying and I understand what you're saying. Then say, let's talk about it. But if you jump in and say, but, then it puts you in an adversarial position. So that's the best way to do it. Listen, affirm, acknowledge, and then discuss it. Avoid the mistake of trying to answer the objection before the buyer or seller gets the objection completely out of his mouth. The objection is legitimate to that person, no matter how ridiculous it may sound. It may be a tiny thing, but they've been wallowing this over in their head, waiting for you to come back for the appointment. So to them, it's important. Interrupting can cause the seller or buyer to be irritated with you. It may not matter how well you handle the objection if you interrupt him. Your mental approach to an objection will determine your success or failure. Most agents dread hearing an objection, but most objections result from one of 2 situations. 1, the seller or buyer has legitimate concerns regarding the property and or your skill to sell his home, or 2, the occurrence of objections is because your presentation was not good enough. You did not convey the confidence that you are the person for the seller to hire for the sale of this home. So just to that point, remember we talked about listing presentations. We talked about being prepared. We talked about all that is available for you in Jostle as a place to start. And Stacy said, look at the listing presentation. You can customize it. You can take pages out or put your own pages in to add branding about you, branding about your team, or something like that. But have it prepared and speak about it with confidence. Whatever you're going to present at your listing presentation, make sure that you present it with confidence, as little or as much as is in your packet. But back to Jostle, it is all there to help you. If you think about the first chapter of Stacy's book, How to Hire a Lion, it talks about the full service agent and the full service company. The full service company is part of the listing presentation, but you should talk about that, about how proud you are to be part of LAER and what LAER will do and the thorough advertising of the listing and everything else. So again, the confidence is the key. The client's desire to work with you is a natural ending to a good, confident presentation. If the presentation is weak, the objections will flow, and that just makes sense. And obviously you get better and better at it as you go. If you are new to the business, ask someone if you can follow them to a listing presentation, because every time you hear a presentation or every time you do it yourself, it's going to be just a little bit different, and you'll learn as you go. Get good at your presentation and get great at overcoming objections, and you will have mastered a great deal of this business. Too many agents adopt the position of the deer looking in the headlights when an objection comes their way. These agents have a negative mental attitude toward objections. They view objections as a big wall between them and the sale. Join the ranks of highly skilled and highly paid realtors and change your mental approach to objections through practice, and you will always look forward to the opportunity to receive them. And that really is true. So let's get started. I mean, as the person is acknowledging or is stating his objection, you might be chomping at the bit like, oh, I have a great answer for this. And if you're confident, you do. So let's talk about this. If I list and sell with you, will you cut your commission? So this is one of the scripts that Stacy has in here. Actually, let me just show you. If you have your manuals, there is an index at the beginning of it. So on page 1, so getting beyond the short manual for today, here, this is Words That Work, which is the document that Stacy wrote, Scripts and Dialogues for Lions. And on that very first page is an index of all of the scripts that are in there. And there is one about cutting commission. Right toward the middle of the page, it says full fee commission objection responses and full fee questions to ask the seller. So again, all of those scripts are there, pages 44 and 45. And we'll go back to those in a minute. I can appreciate this, so this is what you would say. I can appreciate the question, but as a full-time real estate professional, for the sake of my business and my family, I need to be compensated fairly for my time. I know there are some agents that would say yes to your request, but consider this. If an agent is willing to cut his or her commission, how well do you think they will do when it comes to negotiating the best possible price for your home? Hang on a second. Can we close these doors? Can we put, sorry. Back. Or another script could be, so this other listing agent is willing to do the sale for 1% less than I am. That amounts to about $2,500, correct? Let me ask you this. If that agent was so quick to give away $2,500 of his own money, how quick is he going to be to give away thousands of your money when it comes to negotiating with another party on the sale of your home? Good question? That's a great way to put it, and that gets the seller to think about it. And again, you're talking about your value proposition. Or, I know this isn't going to happen, but let's say you're going to need to have brain surgery soon. Now, understand money is important, but you look in the paper and you see an ad like this. This week's special, brain surgery, 20% off. Would you call this doctor and has that done? Probably not. Some things are too important to discount. I'm assuming that selling your house and moving to where you want to move is one of the biggest investments and financial things you're managing in your life, right? Trust me, you don't want to leave this to the hands of a discounted agent. So again, by saying those words, you're adding confidence to how the seller feels about you, because you're already saying, I'm going to be here for you when the negotiating starts on your listing. Another agent said I could do the list for $50,000 higher.
I love it. That's why I just gave it.
Yeah. So I know that it's confusing when different agents come in and with different pricing opinions. In fact, it is not difficult to work the MLS data to come up with a large range of numbers. There are many agents out there that don't have a lot of listings, and they will sometimes tell a seller that they want to hear they'll tell the seller what they want to hear simply to get the listing. They will worry about price reductions down the road and sometimes not express that to the seller. So that's an interesting part of that. In a market like we are in today, the amount of money you get for the property will depend heavily on the number of eyeballs we get on the property when we initially list it. The more eyeballs, the more offers. The more offers, the better the price. The worst thing you can do is price high. You will end up chasing the market down. Has anyone experienced that, where someone's given them that objection about wanting a much higher listing price?
Everyone does.
Yeah. And again, I think the other not affirmation on that, but you need to express to them the appraiser for the buyer's bank, that you have to have the sold comps to prove out the price so that you're not renegotiating 3 weeks down the road because it didn't comp out.
And I feel like that's something a lot of people leave out too, is the fact, it's not even just like, this is what the MLS is showing, this is what the market's showing us, it's
to appraise at that,
Yeah,
otherwise you're the one dishing out the money to these buyers.
exactly, or the buyers are gonna have to come up with a check out of their pocket to make up the difference for what it doesn't appraise for,
Right.
and then nobody's winning in this
Right.
situation. Everybody's coming back to the drawing board, so it's better to do it right the first time and have it
Absolutely.
appraised over.
And again, once again, I think it adds to your not only value proposition, but in your confidence when you're explaining to the seller. Maybe you don't want to so much as say it, but you're here to protect them and guide them through the whole transaction. And sometimes if they've owned the home for several years, you may need to re-explain the role and the important role that the appraiser plays, and how you're being protective as the listing agent by bringing that to the forefront in the beginning to make sure that the price that they listed at goes smoothly when the appraisal comes down the road. So that's part of an education of the seller too. The next objection, you have so many listings, how can you give our listing the attention it deserves? We all wish for that, right?
I was just gonna say, I wish I hadn't.
3 weeks from now, I think you'll be looking back and thinking that one of the biggest advantages I bring to the table is my other inventory. You see, the more signs I have on the street, the more calls I get by buyers, and most of those buyers don't buy the house they call about. In fact, they are not interested in the home they are calling on. I look first within my inventory to find them a different one. Now you can see the advantage of listing with an agent that has a strong inventory of other homes available. Ben Franklin had a quote that said, "If you need something done, ask a busy person." And that is always true. It's not a negative, but a positive. I want to find a house to buy before I put mine on the market. This is the adage that we go through every day. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? You know, do you find a house and then put your house on the market, or do you put your house on the market and then find something? And I know that sellers struggle with this all the time. So here's a response. I agree. Finding your new home is important, and the unfortunate thing is that it could take as long as 3 months for your home to sell. Then it will take another 2 months to get all the paperwork done, and by that time, any home that you would have found would already be sold. Or, let's sign the paperwork tonight on your home subject to finding suitable housing. And then I will make an appointment with you to meet a lender to see if you would qualify for the 2 mortgages at the same time. Has anyone gone through that? So, I mean, there's a lot of questions. Again, you want to profile your seller, meaning ask questions about their situation. And if you're asking financial questions, what I usually say is, I'm going to put the question out there. You don't have to give me an answer, but it's something for you to think about. Like, do they have any mortgage left on the house? Or do they owe it all? I recently had a client who had owned the home more than 30 years. I just presumed they hardly had any mortgage left. Well, they had refinanced at least twice, and they were in it for all the money. So they had no equity. So it was an answer that I hadn't expected for someone who had lived in a house for so long. But you need to get them thinking about those questions. If they have no mortgage and they have the money to go forward, I would still get advice from either a banker or an attorney or an accountant, you know, so that you're not making this decision with them, but you want to get them thinking about all of these things because every situation is different. Qualifying for both mortgages at the same time does happen, but you just really have to be careful that if your house doesn't sell for some reason, are you able to buy the new home without the sale of your first home? So you want to be protective of them so that they don't come back to you and say, hey, you forgot to tell us that this was going to be a problem down the road, or something like that. Another example would be, let's talk for a minute about your home being listed. We have talked some about the challenges of today's market. How would you feel if an offer came in on your home right now and that offer was subject to the buyer selling his home that is not yet sold? So this is part of the chicken or the egg thing. What I express, let's say you take a buyer out Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock and you write an offer. This is what I say to them ahead of time. They're going to ask, when you present the offer, they're going to say, well, if it's contingent on the sale of their home, is their home on the market yet? How aggressively is it being marketed? And if they're like, well, I didn't put my home on until I found something I liked, they're going to be, so what now? Are you putting on the market tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock? You know, it's kind of backwards that way. So you have to get them to understand that, and yet they're scared to put their house on the market, even if they say subject to, because in this market with the inventory being low, their house could go in 2 seconds, and then they're like, Am I going to find what I want? You know, then there's, again, this is part of Stacy's book. One of the chapters in her book that I taught last year is having an alternative place for housing. Do they have a place to go, or could they go to temporary housing if they needed to? I had people last year who were building new construction, and they were able to go into a relative's home. It was quite a large home, and comfortably live there for 3 months while they were waiting for the house to be done. I mean, that doesn't happen with every situation.
Right. Sometimes they're paying for temporary housing at like Tewksbury Town and in suites where,
Right.
you know, they have kitchens and things like that. You get lucky sometimes where you find places like that where if you stay over a certain amount of days, like over 30 days, they'll give you better rates. But sometimes, you know, you have to go to a place where it's like an apartment building. And it's, you know, a 6-month lease, but they're charging you $2,200, $2,300,
Right.
$2,400, and it's outrageous. You know, it's a lot of money for something.
And then there's the storage of all of your belongings while
Yeah.
all of this is happening too. So
Yeah.
you're taking all of your stuff out of the home, putting it in storage, and then taking it out of storage and putting it in the new place when that finally becomes available. So the, you know, every situation is different. And again, this is what the scripts are helping you with, is that every situation is different in real estate. Here's another scenario. The problem with finding the house you want to buy first is that you could end up losing a lot of money. Either you're going to have to end up paying top dollar for your new home, or you're going to have to sell this one for less. Let's say we were going out to look at some houses and you find the house you like. You go to the sellers and you want to negotiate them down. You haven't sold your house yet, so the sellers for the new one, they're going to be at some risk since you haven't sold yours. So what are the sellers going to do? They may sell it to you under some tough conditions. Do you think they'll be flexible with their price, or do you think they'll stay firm since they're taking the risk? So when you're talking to your clients, it's like, which hat are they wearing at the time? You know, they want to get the best value on what they're buying, and yet they want to be firm on what they're selling. And so that's the yin and the yang of what's going on. You know, they've got two different sets of opinions about what they're trying to negotiate.
Right.
Let's say you even do negotiate with the seller and work out a good deal. You're now under contract to buy that house. Now, what do you have to do with your house? You have to sell it quickly. A quick sale means a discounted sale in this market. The worst part about all of this is that you're not in the driver's seat. You're not even in a good position because you need the money quickly to pay for the other house. See, this is what they don't understand, that you have to kind of work together and work it out and not have a stubborn mindset, I guess I would say. But here's the worst part. Whether it's contingent or not, if you don't sell your home in time and you have to drop the whole thing, you lose all around. Let's look at the flip side. Right now, we're in the driver's seat, meaning you don't have any specific commitment to buying a particular house, right? That's beautiful, because here's what we'll do. We put your house on the market for the price you want. We wait until we find a buyer. When one comes, we sell it. No pressure. We're in the driver's seat. We find a buyer, and this person is willing to give us a good price. Now we go and find the sellers of another house and say, look, I want to buy your home, and I've got $400,000 cash. Do you think that the sellers would be willing to listen to you? And they might even do better on the price? Or maybe you can negotiate and say, when you'd like to close based on your buyer. My point is that by selling your home first, you're in the driver's seat. If you go out and buy first, you're locked in because you've made a commitment. You're no longer in the driver's seat. Easier said than done, but it is a much simpler way to do it if you can. And I think we can all attest to what went on last year. Buyers were settling. So if you had buyers that had a certain wish list, these are the 4 things that I need new and different from the place I'm living in now. When they had lost out on 3 or 4 offers, were they settling? Were they not saying, all right, well, maybe I don't need a garage. Well, maybe I don't need that extra bathroom? Because they weren't in the driver's seat. They were settling for what they were purchasing.
Right.
So there's a real point to this. And not everyone can do this, but it's just another thing to think about. You don't seem to sell a lot of homes in our price range. That's an interesting one. That's true. In fact, I sell a lot of homes in lower price ranges, and what I find is that after I sell my client's home, many of them move up to your price range. Therefore, it only makes sense that the next logical step for me is to start to sell in your price range as well, considering I already have a relationship with many of the buyers that will be interested in your home. I like that one.
That's good, yeah.
Now, if you've been in real estate for a while, that might be a great little research project to do, to go back and say, over the last 5 or 10 years, and you can get these stats from MLS, over the last 5 to 10 years, how many houses have I sold in each price range? And then think about, what do they say, the 5 to 7 year move when they decide to sell again? What have they done next and gone to the next price range, which would just, you've listened to this person's objections, you've presented your research, and you've validated it. So that's a good little project to do. I need to net this amount in order to move. I have to be in my new job in 90 days, but I can't afford to buy a new home if I take a loss. So, I mean, listen to what he's saying. He already has a mindset of what his net has to be. So he's kind of pigeonholed his thinking before you even get to discussing all that's involved in the listing. I hear you. There are a lot of people in your position in this market. Has there ever been a time when you knew you were going to have to make a sacrifice? Where you knew it was going to be tough, and in the end, after analyzing all of your options, you realized that there was only one thing to do. Just go for it was the only one thing to do. But you found that in the end, it all worked out. You made it through the tough times and life went on, maybe even better than before. So that objection is saying, try to open yourself up to what may come ahead without telling, again, what have you done first? You've listened, you've acknowledged what the objection was, and then you go on to talking about it. This time is just like that time. The market analysis shows that it is unlikely anyone is going to give you what you need to make this move. Is it more important to get out from under this house, take the new job, and work through the tough times, or are you in a position to keep making mortgage payments on this house for a couple of years until the values go back up? So those are tough statements, but it may be the reality. I mean, how would you say that?
Any nicer.
Well,
Any less. I mean, you want to
To the point with your clients, you don't want to beat around the bush and sugarcoat things. You want to just be like, this is how it is. Are you willing to take the risk of waiting or not?
so
That's how we presented the objection to you. Like that.
So sometimes when they come in with that mindset, this is a great place to bring in your appraiser speech. Because what I would say in a listing presentation is, it's not what you think or what I think, it's what the appraiser is going to think for the buyer's bank. And to show them how the appraiser does his job, to show that it is the sold comps for the last 6 months. So let's say he has an unusual home. For instance, let's take Billerica as an example. Billerica is full of splits. So we know that sold comps are going to be super, super easy in Billerica. But let's say it's a house of an unusual style, and I don't have an example.
Like an octagon.
Yeah, so if this particular home that this guy's trying to sell is an unusual style, then you point out that the appraiser has to have like style, and then bedrooms and beds and age of the house and gross living area, all these different things. But if he can't find houses of like style, he can use something similar, but then he has to write an exception, a written explanation of why he had to go to something else. So you're getting the seller to think a little bit more broadly about the things that may come up and how you're there to protect him and help him through a smooth transaction. So that can sometimes be a new angle that the seller has not even thought of. All right, who wants to? Kelsey, you want to read that?
I'll read it.
Go ahead.
Or, let's pretend that I give you $101 bills and I say, go to the mall and sell each one for 95 cents. This is hypothetical, obviously. For 95 cents, do you think you'd sell them? How quickly would they sell if we mark them at 85 cents? How about if we mark them at $1.20? How fast would they sell? What I'm saying is by taking a house that's worth $200,000 and trying to get more for it than it's worth, it may take an extremely long time.
And don't think the people out there don't know. They've looked at, even if it's just Mr. and Mrs. regular person looking on the internet, they know the values in their particular town. They know what things have been going for. And if a $300,000 split is being listed for $350,000, they're like, what were you thinking? Now, just to look at the for sale by owner here, on the 18th of January, we have Matt McLaughlin coming from our Andover office. He's going to be speaking again about scripts and dialogues on for sale by owners and FSBOs and cold calling and things like that. So we'll get into all of this a little bit again. If we have to go that low, we will probably just list it ourselves and offer to pay 3% to any agent that wants to sell it. Don't you love that one?
Such a FSBO.
All right, who else wants to read?
I'll read.
Go ahead.
I can see your point of view, but there's a lot of legal paperwork and disclosures that a listing agent would handle once the property's under agreement. Who will handle all that paperwork for you? As well, do you think many buyer's agents will feel comfortable selling a property knowing that there is not an agent on the listing side to handle the paperwork or disclosures, etc.? In other words, buyer's agents may be subjected to greater risks by selling a home that isn't listed by a real estate agent. Can you see how that would affect the saleability of your home?
On top of how well it can sell. On top of that, how is he advertising it if he's marketing it himself? Does he know how to use social media or?
We saw this in Drake. It was a home. They had a sign like those easels for kids.
Oh yeah.
They had a sign on one of those, and they had it like tied to a tree in their front yard, so it wouldn't go anywhere. And the house probably sat for 6 to 8 months, something around there. And then finally, you saw it go on with an agent. They had a sign in the front yard. Then you saw that come down, and it went up with another agent because of the price. It sat for I think it was like 3 months with the first agent. Didn't sell. Probably priced incorrectly for where it was and the road it was on and things like that. And then it was listed with another agent, and I'm pretty sure it just got sold.
So here's the first thing that comes to my mind, and this goes back to profiling, meaning asking what the details are of your seller. Obviously, there was not any urgency with that seller.
Yeah,
Okay.
they remodeled the whole home too. Like they tried to sell it without doing anything to it by themselves. And then once it came off the market from a FSBO, I noticed that they did the siding on the house and stuff, but it wasn't until the pictures came on the MLS that I realized that they had rehabbed this entire home.
Okay, so now we're getting to a whole other thing. Here's the problem with that. The money that they've put in, let's say they put $10,000 or $20,000 in, they're not going to get it back. They say if you do an improvement, you've got to live there 5 years or so in order to So there's two problems with that. So when you're going to meet with the seller, obviously the time frame is important to ask. Are you being transferred? Is someone having a baby and you want to be in the new house before the baby arrives? Whatever, or the parents are coming to live with you, whatever it is, you want to find out, what that urgency is or is not. And then the thing about doing the upgrades, that's a whole different course, but I would be very careful about doing that. And again, it sounds like these people who've FSBO'd for so long had their own mindset of how they felt it should be, which, wasn't the best answer. We can always come down in price later. Oh, that's a great one. And again, that's in the words that speak. Anyone?
I can do it.
Go ahead.
You're right, but I'm afraid by that point, you'd have to deeply discount your price. You see, if we come out of the gate with your home overpriced, many of the buyer's agent will instantly write you off as a non-motivated seller. Let me just explain what that means from an agent's perspective. The higher prices on property, the less the seller needs to sell it. At least that's what the agent believes from their past experience. To agents, a non-motivated seller means even if you come down in price later, two things will happen. Most agents won't even realize your home has been reduced. Now you might say, can't we send a flyer telling them that it's been reduced? Well, yes, but you could send everyone a flyer telling them that the prices have been reduced, but the agents get 500 flyers a week, and there's a good chance that it will go unnoticed. If they see that you've had the home price, if they see that you've had the home price real high in the beginning, that will tell them that you were kind of unrealistic when we listed the property. Meaning that you didn't believe what I was saying was true. All agents interpret this as trouble when it comes to getting the deal closed. Do you understand why? If we price it to sell right from the beginning, our odds of getting agents to show it is much higher.
So let's turn to page 57, the last page of today's manual. And Casey and Courtney, you guys want to role play this? Just read it back and forth?
Sure. So let me ask you this. If a great offer came in today, what price would you accept? If you're willing to accept less than the list price, let's not keep that a secret. Let's tell the world that you will accept that price by repositioning the home to that number. Does that make sense?
I'm sure that you are aware that homes are still depreciating in value every day. Based on the value of your home, you are depreciating X amount of dollars every week. Not to mention your carrying costs, loss of interest income, or not being able to move on with your life. If your bank withdrew the same amount of money every week out of the savings account, you would move your money, wouldn't you? Well, the same thing is happening. You need to move your house as well.
I know you would rather wait to reduce, but may I ask, wait for what? The longer you wait, the less money you're going to receive.
I know you're upset with me, but I have to tell you the truth. That is what you want, isn't it? You have heard of the term medical malpractice. Well, if I don't tell you honestly what's going on, I will be committing real estate malpractice. Sometimes the truth hurts, but I have to deliver the message.
I know you're afraid that if you reduce, you may get less money. But wouldn't it be better to get an offer that you say no to instead of not getting any offers at all?
I agree. Your home should be worth blank dollars, but not in this market.
Let me try to say that.
A minimal price reduction is not going to have the impact we need. And all it will do is make me come back in a few weeks and ask you to reduce again. All we will be successfully doing is chasing the market down. I want the market to chase you for a change. And the only way to make that happen is to reposition to a number that will have the greatest impact. What would you like to do?
So I've seen a lot of brokers putting price adjustment, or that's another word too, new price, instead of saying reduction. I don't think reduction's a very positive word to use. again, when I think about all of these responses that you've just read, I think about showing the seller the days on the market, the things that have gone under agreement in his neighborhood, and how many days on the market it took them to go under agreement. And again, what are you doing? You're listening, acknowledging, and then speaking about the concerns. Sometimes it's a good thing to take the seller to see a few of his competitions, because they always think that their home is the perfect home, and yet maybe they've never updated the kitchen and the bathrooms. Maybe they still have orange shag carpeting and turquoise appliances in the kitchen, and they're trying to have their price be the same as the price down the street that just put a brand new white kitchen in. So without actually coming out and saying, well, there's a house down the street that looks a lot nice, you don't want to come out and say that. Just take them on a little tour and show them a couple of the houses. Have you ever done that?
I have.
Yeah.
I've done it on MLS. Just
Just showed them.
Just say,
I've
let's
done
see
it even
what's
beforehand, before determine, if I feel like they wanna go too high on the list price, I've taken them out to see the current competition.
Before you list it.
Before finalizing the list price.
Really?
So do you like sign the agreement tentatively with them and say? I sign the agreement and then I say, listen, I'll be very upfront. It's not binding unless all aspects of the contract are agreed upon, right? So if there's not a list price, it's really not a binding. Yeah.
So you have them sign without the list price yet?
I do, just to set the expectation.
And
If
just
nothing
say-
else, this is what we're doing
And just say, listen, I'd like to take you out and educate you on
Right.
where I'm getting the pricing on these homes so
Yeah.
that you're better understanding.
Wow.
You're walking through
yeah,
the
let
same
me show
exact
you
thing that
what
I'm walking through.
buyers are,
Mm-hmm.
they see your house, this is
Yeah.
also what they're seeing.
Right.
And
I
then
think
guess-
that helps a lot.
And then I guess you
Yeah.
could even spin that and say, when you're staying in a house, even if it's the one up the street that just, remodeled or whatever, you can say, okay, do you see the value in this home given at the price that it's listed at? Would you pay this for this house?
Mm.
So if you would, what would you pay for your house then?
I might even have a third party person come with us so that it's not me against them.
Yes.
Like
Another set of eyeballs.
right,
to
just
say,
another
hey,
set of eyeballs that says, hey, as, what do you call it, unbiased
Yeah.
opinion, yeah.
While we're on that subject, let's go back to page 52, because again, this entire book of suggestions is so helpful in whatever situation you get in. You ready? All right. How about Renee and Kelsey?
What do you do?
Just read each one.
We made a lot of improvements. Did you make those improvements for the next buyer or for yourself? You obviously have enjoyed the upgrades, haven't you? A buyer may not have picked the same improvements as you, which means they have no value to them. And even if they did, at best, they would give you 50 cents on the
Ooh,
dollar.
let's stop with that one.
Yeah,
Ooh.
that sounds insulting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a little firm, but it does, okay, but it does get you to thinking,
You'll get 50 cents.
when someone has made an upgrade, have they done it neutrally? Or, yeah, gosh.
Usually in a sense, no. Like if you're upgrading a kitchen, just because you put in, white waterfall granite and gray cabinets, a buyer could come in and be like, oh my God, I hate white countertops.
Yes,
I
yes.
love this house layout, I love everything about it, but I dread the kitchen.
Yes.
Just
And
that
it's-
happened to me.
Yeah, and it's all personal opinion. You have to understand that the buyer is gonna really be looking at the structure of the home, how well it's been maintained, things like that, has different water in the basement and stuff.
And
They're
what do-
gonna look past colors and
Right. What did we just say about the money you put into it? You can't say, well, I just spent $30,000 on a new kitchen. Well, you did that for your enjoyment. You can't expect to then add $30,000 on what the price is that the appraiser will come out with at the moment. That's
Right, they don't care if they're oak cabinets or, if I think if the kitchen has been updated, that does definitely provide value to the house.
Mhm.
But in terms of some of the materials being used,
might appeal more to buyers, but ultimately may not necessarily provide more value to the house. So it's hard when you have those conversations. I think the typical kitchen, right, is mass market. You either have white cabinets or wood cabinets. As I would say, as long as they're not, I met with a gentleman who, before I entered his house, I thought I did a great job qualifying. And he said, no, we just installed brand new wood cabinets. They're beautiful. I was excited to see them. And basically they were wood cabinets that were, what do you call it, blank wood?
Oh, yeah.
Like
Plywood.
plywood.
Yeah.
Plywood.
Wow.
And he goes, yep, all new. And I was like,
They look unfinished. So someone's version of new and upgraded makes it very
Yeah.
drastically different from the next person's. And that's a good way to put it too, is, you know, you see this as a high improvement on your home, it's a great upgrade, but a buyer may not feel the same way based on what they need in a home. You know, you may think this kitchen upgrade is like the best thing since sliced bread, and they're just kind of meh about it.
I think that's, it's okay to have like, as long as the house shows well and it does have nice qualities. I don't know that, you know, unless the kitchen has some exceptionally odd things in it, for the most part, it's gonna appeal. You know what I mean, if it's been updated.
Yeah, it will appeal, I don't know if it will be worth how much more, but it will definitely sell a lot faster.
Well, and typically on a kitchen especially, you only get about 60%, you know, of that value back into the home. You're never getting 100%. So you can't, again, going back to put $45,000 into the house and expect to get that back on top
Right.
of that price.
Right,
Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that.
right. Sometimes I will ask the seller to give me a list of the improvements that they've done over the years.
Yeah.
And sometimes they take it a little bit too far. I had a listing in Carlisle, and he put every single year that he did something, and he had the receipts for everything that he did and the cost that it cost him. And some of those costs were 20, 25 years ago, and he was like, it was almost like it was working against me, because he was adding all of those up and saying, oh, my house should be worth $1 million for all the money that I put into it. But, you know, it was things like a furnace and a roof that you would have needed to do over 30 years and living in a house. And
That's not an update.
no.
I mean,
That's
just-
regular maintenance.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, putting, you know, a new like green system in that, you know, for like your water heater or whatever, your energy efficient stuff, like, yeah, that can add some value to having like a green home in a sense, but how long have you used it? You know, have you?
Well, and I said to this guy, I said, all of the things, not all of the things, but a lot of the things that you've put down are wonderful in the fact that they're going to help you to get through a home inspection better, because you've done these basic, not basic maintenance things, but
Yeah, the upkeep.
yeah. But sometimes they don't look at that. All right, you're on for number 2.
Another agent said we could get more. This happens all the time. Many agents overprice a listing so they can get the seller to hire them and then start pushing the seller for price reductions week after week. They'll eventually want you to list the home for the price I'm recommending today, and in the process will waste valuable market time. Is that what you want? I would rather tell you the truth and potentially lose your business than lie to you and lose your respect.
Go ahead.
No, I kinda like that. I would rather potentially lose your business than lie to you and lose your respect.
Yeah, it's a good
That's
line.
kind of a.
And you know what? You might think that's
I like
a
that.
little bit strong or whatever, but what is it doing again? It's
But the
adding
way
to your
you say
value
value,
proposition and
yeah.
your confidence.
You're not gonna do
Well, it's
something.
setting a standard too for the relationship.
Absolutely.
You're not
Wouldn't,
just gonna do something because they want you to do it. You're gonna do something because you're being transparent. and
You've
you think
just-
it's correct.
that's right. You've just said to him, I'm being honest with you from the beginning, and I hope that's how our relationship goes
You
forward.
command respect that way too. I think
Yeah.
you get
You seem like you're more of a,
not afraid.
Yes.
valued professional.
They should understand too that if they look at more than one agent, that sometimes those people are just trying to get the listing and not being honest with you. They're just in there to get it for whatever they can.
And I feel like something like that kind of reminds me of, it's like the best thing I was ever told. we don't list houses, we sell them. We do not take listings just to put them on the market and watch them expire or be withdrawn or be canceled. We put them on to get them sold.
That's right.
Good point.
So we are doing what we can do to make sure that your house sells and does not just get listed on the market. There's a difference.
Right, that's good.
Good point. Again, every time we make a comment, I think back to Stacy's book. If anyone has not read How to Hire a Lion, there's 7 chapters to it. It's a great reference. It is Real Estate 101, and a lot of it does talk about our confidence and how we're representing our clients and the things that we should say and how we should gain their confidence and do the right thing by them. So if you haven't read Stacy's book, you can actually, there's a link at the bottom of Jostle where you can order the books, or just email me and I'll tell you how you can get them as well. All right, Renee, number 3.
Another agent gave us a higher list price. Some agents price homes to list them, and some agents price homes to sell them. What kind of an agent do you want?
I should have Casey read that.
Sorry, I didn't read ahead, but.
Well, I've said that. I mean, I've often said that. I can list your home for $450, or I can sell your home for $400. Which do you prefer? Like, because that basically that's what's going to happen. I'll list it and we'll start chasing the market. We'll start rejection, reduction, and then the offers we get now have more stern contingencies. Whereas if we list it and attract more buyers, there's more of a chance that buyers will waive contingencies.
And then buyers are like, why is it reducing so many times?
And they use that in negotiating against you.
Exactly.
The other question I wanted to ask you, Renee, is when you talk about the 450 and the 4, wouldn't that also feed into their urgency to sell?
Yeah, so that's a good conversation, because I have had oftentimes sellers who want to buy who haven't found their home yet. Those people aren't in a rush. And in fact, I had a listing that I way overpriced. I had the discussion with the seller. Her strategy was, I know it's overpriced, but we have no idea where we're going, and we need the time to find the house. So
That's why she wanted to list it overpriced.
So I said, why don't we
So
wait
it's
to
on the
list
market.
it, and so that you have a better idea at least where you're going. I said, I feel like this entire thing is gonna happen the opposite, and ultimately it did. It sat,
Wow.
it was just a fiasco, and I ended up not selling the house. Another agent sold that house, and it was huge. It was a huge learning experience for me. I will never, ever, ever grossly overprice a house again, no matter what the seller wants. I just won't do it.
Well, since you just had that conversation, you should read number 4.
Number 4, we don't need to sell our home quickly. Is money important to you? Homes sell at their highest possible price during the first couple of weeks of exposure. That's because the best, most qualified and motivated buyers look at new inventory immediately. The longer your home stays on the market, the less money you will receive. And that is a fact. That's a rock solid fact.
Yep.
Let's price it right and get the home sold quickly. That's so true. Another thing that I did learn was, regardless of the weather, walk the property. Get a really good sense of the property. I didn't walk the property that day either. It was pouring, downpouring. I didn't walk the property, and I didn't realize how minuscule the yard was. A lot of the acreage was in the front, and I didn't realize, I didn't realize, and it was such a simple thing. And yeah, so that was an epic failure on my part. Total learning though. I'll never do it
Let's
again.
talk about houses in the winter as far as property goes. So that's a hard thing to do in the winter, and if there is snow, what do you see under the snow? So sometimes you're taking the word of the description of the property from the seller. For instance, is the grass wonderful, or do they have an irrigation system or something like that? Tom from LAER 3D can now do virtual landscaping. I had a house closed this fall where,
That's pretty cool.
yeah, but they had to put a new septic, or I guess they hooked up to town sewer. So the front yard was a mess because they had just
Yeah.
reseeded at the time of closing. But in a situation like that for the seller, he could have done some virtual landscaping.
Is that like false advertisement?
No,
Under certain circumstances, like that would be okay, because,
But you have to disclose it.
right.
I was gonna say, I would disclose it.
Virtually.
staged.
Okay.
Right. The other thing is,
You
I
get
always,
muddy wetlands.
if you're doing like Renee did, you're
did
listing something in January and you're wondering, okay, what does this look like the rest of the year? Ask them for pictures of different times of the year. We had a house in Chelmsford years ago where the man had put bushes in his property so that from the side to the back to the side, so that something would bloom every week of the year from May to October. So
My mom does that.
That's amazing.
we actually had him draw a diagram and label the bushes so that whoever the new person was going to be would know. But I mean, that was great pictures to add to the property, and hard to do in the winter. So, ask them if there's a pool that's not open now. Ask them for a picture of the pool without the kids in it, for the summer, or flowering trees if they have fruit trees in the yard or whatever might make it better. All right, on to number 5.
I insist on listing my home for my price.
Oh well, misprint.
That is awesome.
I'll start over, but I had to get that out of my system. I insist on listing my home for my price. When I came out today, I thought you actually wanted to sell your home, but it sounds like you really only want to list it. I do know some agents in the business that would love to just list homes and aren't very busy.
This is Casey's speech, yes.
Would you like me to email their names and phone numbers
Oh, I'm not sure I would do that. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I might do that, actually. That might be something that would come out of my
to you?
mouth.
I have their numbers right here. Let me just give you.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like your phrase about the selling of the home, but it's also saying to them, I am here to not only represent you, but to follow you through the entire transaction. Sorry to keep going back to, and no, I'm not sorry at all. In the first chapter of Stacy's book, she talks about how it takes 4,600 hours for us to follow a transaction through. And a lot of times this, and in many different ways, this is a conversation to have when you're listing their house. Because they might think, oh yeah, so you signed the document today and I won't see you till the day of the closing. They don't understand how much work there is between the first day and the last day. And that's part of the value proposition and the confidence, is that you want to say to them, I will be here for you through the entire transaction. All right, last one. The other agent was confident they could list my home for more money. Did the other agent tell you that they would list your home for more or sell your home for more? Back to Casey. There is a difference. I thought the goal was to sell your home and move to wherever it is. Is that correct? So, see, you're switching their mindset and getting them to think about,
What's motivating them?
yeah. Let's go back to this. We aren't quite ready yet. We need to finish a couple of projects around the house before we put it on the market. Let's talk about that before we even go further. I'm very conservative. I mean, obviously, if you look at this picture, that's undone. There was a listing in...
I walked into a house like this where there was like beams up for walls and no walls. And I'm like, what is this supposed to be? Like, I couldn't even figure out what room.
There was a
what
listing
anymore.
in MLS the other day, and it was when Eric was doing a class, and he showed us the descriptions, and it said in the listing description, we've pulled everything down to the studs. Now all you need to do is finish it off. It was put in a very positive light, and I'm like, are you kidding? You know. So it was a half-done house. But how do you, when you walk in and you're surprised by an unfinished project, what do you say to the seller?
Still needs a lot of work.
Well, depending on what market he or she might be missing, right? Because if the work being done puts them in a position where they're gonna end up ultimately listing in a much less competitive market, I might say, hey, who do we need to get in here to get this work done? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe talk about the various markets. I mean, you can't really have a room like that virtually staged.
No.
It's not gonna put up drywall and,
A roof.
All right, let's talk about this.
why don't we complete the paperwork now and while you're,
All right, read it out loud. Go ahead.
Awesome, why don't we complete the paperwork now, and while you're doing your projects, I'll get the flyer done and paperwork processed, so when you're ready, I will be too. We'll write it in the contract, no showings for 2 weeks.
But so then my question with that is, if you don't finish in your timeline, what do you do?
Mm,
When are pictures being taken?
mhm,
At the last minute?
mhm.
You know, like,
That's tough.
you now have to draw out a timeline to say, okay, once we get all this done, this is what's gonna happen so that we can put it on. Because you really can't, your flyer is limited to is what info you can give out till everything is done. Because what if something doesn't work out the way you had planned, and now you're changing things?
I wouldn't even be doing a flyer at this point, though.
Mhm.
I would
Well,
say,
see, I don't like this at all.
I would say, let's
No
get the
offense,
paperwork
Stacy.
Sorry,
signed,
no.
so that I can at least network with area brokerage
Right.
and buyers to let them know about the upcoming listing.
Here's the other pickle that you're walking into in the middle of this. And the pickle is, how are they doing the finishes?
Yeah.
Are they doing something neutral? And we have a whole staging thing, again, which is part of the 7 chapters of Stacy's book. But are they doing something neutral, or are they doing something that was always their dream to do, but it's something outrageous?
Yeah.
I become very conservative at that point. I always have been about finishing things, but I would want to say, what are you doing and how are you finishing it? Even with granite selection, that's an individualized thing. And are they making a neutral choice, or do you want to leave it for the new buyers and say, I'm going to give you a credit toward picking your own granite out?
I walked into a house in Westford,
Mhm.
so, higher end market, definitely a higher end home, I believe it's like a $700,000 house. Beautiful glass front, like everything you could want in a house. Looked like it was out of California. Pink kitchen, pink granite. I'm talking like
Ooh,
the
flamingo,
top of,
like it was in
the
Florida.
top of her
Oh.
canister, it was pink cabinets and like pink marble and white, like granite.
Wow.
And I walked in and I
really
as
see
an
that.
no, I previewed this as an agent. So
I know.
I walked in and I'm like, wow, this house is gorgeous. It's got a catwalk over the top. It's super open. And the layout to the kitchen was beautiful. Like as much storage as you could imagine.
Woman's house.
But it was a
She
woman's
must
house.
be a designer or something.
Not with this kitchen she wasn't. Because it was like everything but her appliances were pink. Like it was an eyesore. You could not, and now I can see where buyers come from when they're like, I can't get past the bright yellow paint. Like, I was like, whoa.
All right, so
That's
let's.
like, what was that house in Tiffany?
It was shocking.
With the
Wow.
backsplash. So many people hated that backsplash. Remember the artist?
Oh, yeah.
There's something so small like that that turns so many
This
people
woman, we
around.
had this house listed on Pillsbury,
Oh yeah, Pillsbury.
and, nice kitchen, I love that house.
Me too, I love
And,
that house.
but the backsplash, they said the previous owner did it all primary colors,
Like
mosaic.
broken, yeah, she did it
Yeah.
herself.
Yeah,
Of course she did.
and
Yeah.
She was like an
It
artist
was
or
like-
something.
I just thought it was, but everybody, I mean, that shouldn't stop somebody from buying a house.
You
No,
could
that's
change
not-
that. Yeah, you could.
But that's what you have to educate buyers and sellers on too, is somebody's gonna come into your home that we're
Yes.
listing to sell, and they're going to be picky about certain things, and a buyer has every right to be, but you should also be educating your buyer that you need to look at the layout of the home, the size of the home, and how it's gonna work for you. If all you have to do is a little bit of paint when you move in, you need to be able to get past the colors on the wall, because this is not what you're going to be living with. This being your home, you now get to decide what gets done and what does not get done. And you have to inform your sellers that, just because it wasn't, and I'm dealing with this now with conservation area, just because it was not a problem to you when you bought the house and it's never proposed a problem, doesn't mean that a buyer is not going to get stuck on it because they see it as a problem. And they're not you. They're seeing things differently. They're perceiving the home differently. So what you loved about it and what made you buy it could be the total opposite.
So hard
for
to
buyers.
explain to them. Let's go back to the pink kitchen and let's play a game. let's say,
I wanna find that house on MLS.
let's say you were going in to list that house, and it was your first time there. You walk in the door, hoping to get that listing, and you look at that kitchen for the first time. Now you've reversed the role. You're not the buyer agent, you're the listing agent. How would you approach that with them? She already thinks her house is perfect, right?
I would just present it in, you know, the sense of, you know, you love your kitchen, clearly pink is your favorite color, and that's awesome. And I love that you're portraying that through your home, but for the sake of buyers, I feel like maybe you should even just tone down the cabinets, go, you know, paint them white if you can. Or something as simple as that, because you're neutralizing the colors in the home. It flows a little bit better, because the rest of the house was very neutral. It was very like creams and tans.
So would
Were the
you
cabinets
suggest
painted pink?
painting her
What
pink
cabinet?
cabinet?
I mean, to me, what else?
Neutralizing the counter. I think if you're not, if she's not gonna, right, if she's not gonna neutralize it, I suppose you have to suggest that that the majority of people might not care for, I don't know, but I mean, let's
I
talk.
would have a
That's
staging
supposed to be-
consult.
I would
I would
just,
have
might
a
not wanna
professional
do it, though.
stager come in.
I would say,
I would,
yeah.
I would.
Good
I would
point.
start
Yeah.
a conversation.
I was gonna say, I'm not a designer,
I would just
but-
say, listen, honestly, because I would love that. I would say, I think your kitchen's stunning. I said, so I'm with you.
Oh no,
I
that's
love
not
the
cool.
counter.
Here's what I would do. I
Love
would
them.
say,
There's the cabinet.
I want you to speak, I will arrange to have a professional
Yes.
stager come in, and so that you can get an actual estimate for repainting or refinishing these cabinets, because your house is amazing, and I wanna make sure that I'm getting you the very top dollar I can get for it.
You see how positive her
yeah,
statements
very
were?
good, yeah.
So let's get a stager in here, or a professional,
Mhm.
and even a professional painter, and give you an idea
Yeah.
as to what we're looking at, and even stage it with all white canisters, all
Yeah.
very neutral stuff,
Mhm.
but refacing these cabinets are something to consider.
It could add value to your home, because a buyer could, and you could say that too, you know, a buyer could come in and be very, very stuck on the work that they may have to do to neutralize this kitchen for themselves,
Mm.
and then they could be negotiating that in the asking price with you.
One
You
of
know, they were seeing the house as,
Um,
well, I have to put all this work in to make this what I want, because this is the only room in the house that, you know, may need work, or they think may need work, even if you don't.
I think the
One of the
stager is a
things-
wonderful neutral
One of the
idea.
things I did learn about talking to sellers is, don't be overly concerned with the buyer. You don't work for the buyer, you work for the seller,
Mhm.
right? So as soon as you start weighing too much on what buyers like and what buyers want, and this, all they hear is like, wait a minute, who are you working
Yes.
for? You know what I mean? So work for me, and talk about getting them in a position where they can ultimately achieve their goals, and what suggestions you might implement along that way.
I would love that.
Mm.
That's just been my experience. I don't really talk too much about the other side, other than this is, you know, you might, and it's really all about them too, like what are they open to? Because if you sit down and start talking about a staging consult, or you start talking about something, part of qualifying would be, you know, are you open to making any changes that I might suggest that might help the sale or might help net you more?
So let's talk about that for a minute. Once again, everything we talk about goes back to the classes that I've taught in Stacy's book, and one of them was on staging. And in one of the classes we taught, we asked people, do you suggest a stager, and do you pay for one? We had one team in the company who that is part of their value proposition in listing a house, is that they always pay for the consult. That was just their decision. But whether it's a tiny thing or a big thing, again, it takes the responsibility off you, and it's putting it on that third party to make suggestions, whether it's as much as the pink kitchen, or whether it's as take 50% of the stuff out of the closets or off the shelves, or put your collections away, or take the fake plants out of the living room, whatever it is. But that's a good suggestion to make. And the other point about that is, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And to Casey's point about the photos, so all that you're saying, you looked at the pink kitchen, you're suggesting the stager, you're thinking ahead about the pictures, and then getting on the market when everything is in place. That's the way to do it. And you, again, it's another conversation with the seller to express to them that you want to have everything properly ready to go the day that it goes puff onto the market.
I've always included my staging services to my listing clients as part of that comes with me. And then I'll go in and clean, declutter, and they work with me and get rid of furniture if it's too big, or
Yeah.
to make the room.
I think it
look
would
all
be excellent if
open
some of us became,
I would love to.
So we have
staging.
We have a
certification.
stager coming, I think toward the end of next week. It's part of our new LAER concierge service. And she's coming to speak to us, so you will get to meet somebody.
Janet Sahar does it too.
Yes, she does, in North Reading. Just another thing about our manual here and the words to speak on page 36 and 38 and 40. We're not going to read through it now, but there are 100 different thoughts in here to help with your commission conversation. So if you guys have never known that all of this was there, it is in a separate document in Jostle, also called Words That Speak. For those of you that are thinking of coming to boot camp on January 17th, it is part of the boot camp manual as well. So these words and scripts are always there to give you confidence. And the more you look at them, the more they're going to be in the back of your mind, so that when you're with a client, you have them at your fingertip to come up. And you can go over those in your own offices anytime you want. So on the commission part of it, will you cut your commission? There are other agents that will do it for less. And again, on 36 through 40, there's millions of answers to that. Yes?
Can you just repeat, when people ask questions, can you just repeat them?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Did I miss? Was there one that was asked? No. Is that what they just asked?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't go backwards unless somebody remembers what they asked. They said if one of you asks a question, if I can repeat the question before we answer it, so that they can hear. There are other people listening. So you're right. There are lots of desperate agents out there, and I'm a little concerned for you should choose, and I'm a little concerned for you should choose one of them. If an agent is so desperate that they are willing to broadcast the fact that they don't think they have a value as a realtor, is that the type of person you want sitting from the negotiating table? We talked about this at the beginning of today. Is that the type of person you want representing you in the most valuable transaction of your life? So again, you're showing that you have confidence, and as Renee just said, you're showing them that you're on their side and helping them through the transaction. Commissions aren't negotiable with agents that sell homes. We're going to keep using Casey's quote. They are only negotiable with realtors who don't believe in the services that they offer. You need a strong agent that sells homes, right? You're not playing a game of listing a house. You're in it for following the transaction through and selling the home. Here is a list of what I do for you as a professional. What would you like me to take out? So again, the 4,600 minutes that are in Stacy's first chapter are probably not even all of the things that we do. But I always use the example in my classes of the elderly couple who's lived in their home for 40 years or so. They don't even understand all that's involved in a transaction nowadays. So to explain to them all that you do to list the house, to get it out there properly, to get it marketed, and then to do the open houses, to answer questions, to present the offers, to follow the negotiation through, to meet the appraiser, they're going to sit there and go, wow, I had no idea. Go ahead.
So I've seen, and I'll talk a little bit louder so they can
Yeah.
So I've seen agents that, when they go in and they say, okay, I have, a gold, a platinum, and a silver. This is what you get for 6%,
Yes.
This is what you get for 5%, this is what you get for 4%. These are the services I'm gonna offer you. So you would like me to discount my commission, so given that, if you want me to list your house at 4%, this is what I'm gonna do for you. You know, and I thought that that was kind of intriguing because it puts into perspective for the seller, well, this is the value I get when
That's
I list
right.
at 6%. This is what I'm missing out on when I list at 4%. You know, and then they can say, well, why would you do that? And it's, well, I'm being compensated for my time at the end of this transaction. You know, when I break it down, I have to pay for your marketing, I have to do this, and it's my time. And you can kind of go through, you know, why you're earning that commission with them and what you're doing. And I guess that's just a good way to kind of just black and white it for your sellers and say,
Yep.
you get to make the decision. I'm gonna let you choose what package you wanna get out of me.
Right. Another thing, Tom Vigilitis is coming sometime in our last week, LAER3D.com. It's a link at the bottom of the page in Jostle. I recently had to do a presentation to a builder I've known for a long time, but his son has just come on to the group. And all I did was show Tom's video at the beginning, and I could have walked out of there 5 seconds later. It sold itself because the completeness and thoroughness of the advertising that you get from that, not only the professional pictures and the floor plans, which are really important in new construction, but the Matterport, which if any of you saw the open house I did Sunday, I posted on Facebook the Matterport that Tom had done. But that complete advertising tells your seller. So if you're at the listing presentation and you show LAER 3D, they're like, okay, I'm done. There's your 6%, because you're showing them the complete. And I always say in my listing presentation, I promise to give your home the thorough marketing that your home deserves. See the heart tug there? You're individualizing it, but you're also saying, I'm going to do my utmost best job that I can possibly do. Renee, any unusual things or special things that you included in your listings?
I like to offer the staging consult. I think that's important. Only if the home needs it though, and I feel.
The walkability is an important factor. You were saying
Usually,
taking a chair out or something, you know.
What I do that I think people like, in the cases where I've competed and got listings, you know, I usually ask, what was it about my presentation that convinced you that I was the right agent? And usually it has to do with confidence. I think if you can speak really well to them, look them in the eye when you're talking to them, keywords to use are needs, wants, deserve, 5-star representation, thorough follow-up, fierce negotiations. I mean, they have to know that they're hiring somebody that's a full package agent, not somebody that's taking the back seat. And I always do say this, I say, I want you to test me when, have your family and friends come to an open house, have your uncle call me about the listing, and don't tell me that he's your uncle. I want you to feel so well represented by me that you can test me at the drop of a hat. When somebody calls me about your house, know that I am, you know, I am sales mode 24/7. So they're not gonna, you know, if you call me at 8 o'clock at night, you're not gonna get my low-key pitch. You're gonna get as much of a 5-star pitch as you would at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Or 12.
12 noon. Anyway, but yeah, I think that tends to be something that people like, that they're like, wow, okay.
To that point, a friend of mine just did a talk somewhere that I went to see, and she said, forget asking for your testimonials after the transaction is closed. Ask for testimonials during the transaction.
So, yeah.
It is,
She always says.
Before commitment,
yeah,
absolutely.
it is a testament to,
Right after PNS?
yeah, ask how am I doing? And, you know, if they say, oh, I haven't heard from you in 4 weeks, you know, you're hoping that they don't say that. But if they say, this is amazing, I haven't had to do a thing, your communication has been great, I'm so happy, you know, that's what you want to hear. But good to be honest with yourself and to take that constructive criticism, and hopefully it's positive again. But to know during the transaction that the client is happy, or is there something that needs to be corrected. A lot of times, the communication can be one or the other is the point person, or I had one recently where it was a divorce, and one of the divorce attorneys said, don't forget that every single email that you send has to be sent to both people. So, just remember, be respectful of who you're talking to and how you're communicating with them, or is it by text only,
I might even have, like, if I know I'm competing and this listing is, if it's an amazing listing, I'm competitive, so I go nutty anyway once I know I'm competing. Seriously. Eye of the tiger, I even play Eye of the Tiger as I'm driving to the listing.
That'll pump you up.
I might, ask them in advance, just say, I know you're interviewing other agents and you absolutely should be. I'm gonna give you a list of questions that you ask them, because I wanna make sure you're making the best decision. Oh, and by the way, would you mind if I did a quick video in front of your house? If you are comfortable and you wanna hire me, I'm ready to get to work for you right now. I will post the video immediately, once you give me the okay. Always be respectful though. Because I do think people are turned off if you're too cocky and don't come across arrogant. There's a fine line about being confident and then crossing the line. And, cause I met with a couple who actually, sweetest couple, love these people. They had me there for, I wanna say 4 hours, longest listing appointment I've ever been on. But they said that they had met another agent at an open house, and they were getting listings from her, and they were completely turned off by that. They were like, she didn't even ask us, and so it was just like another thing, like, it was a
She just
reminder.
automatically plugged all the people from the open house into an MLS.
But I've done that, you know what I mean? I have done that, and basically what it is, it can turn people off.
Yeah.
Just say, always ask permission. I think people are more will respect you if you show them respect.
What are you plugging them into? Like
I
setting
just sign them right up. So when I host an open house, I usually,
I've done that with my campaigns.
right, just say, if they sign in and everything's legible, and I've had some conversation with them at the open house, I'll then say to them, I'll sign you up for MLS listings, you'll receive them in your mailbox every day, etc., and then I'll follow up to see if you have interest in seeing anything.
And this is only people that don't have a realtor, obviously.
Yeah, yes. So, but I guess the takeaway from that conversation with that couple was, it's okay to ask. My big thing, I mean, as a sales trainer, I would always say, if you ask a yes or no question, chances are you're gonna get a no answer.
Right.
So don't ask it. But it was just a different take. And it made me respect the demographic, because they were a very older couple. So I think for them, respect was a big thing, right? Whereas if it were young first-time home buyers, they might appreciate you taking the lead. They don't know, right? So I don't know that respect would be a huge thing for, I don't know, again, maybe I'm stereotyping.
Janice Sullivan in our North Reading office, she does a unique thing when she does a two-part listing. So she goes first, meets with the people, and then maybe she's putting her final CMA together. The minute she gets back out to her car, she has thank you notes written right in her car. She writes it personally to the person, puts the stamp on it, stops at the post office on the way home that night, and sends the note.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do that. That's important. I
Right
think
after the
the handwritten note is, because so many agents don't do that.
Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for letting me visit your home. Whatever it is. But it's interesting. I'm about to go to Inman the end of this month again, which I think is the best conference of the year. And last year, and I guess it'll be worse this year, last year the two ends of the spectrum were, if you're not doing video, you're nowhere. And don't forget that the handwritten note is the most important thing in the world. So it sounds like the two opposite ends of the spectrum, but they're saying even though social media and video are so important, don't forget your relationships and stay in touch, because when you get your mail during the day, you get bills, you get junk, and you get a handwritten note. What are you going to open first?
Even, even as terms of like, there are times when I mailed out my calendars, I ordered 500 calendars, I sent out 400 of them, and I hand addressed every single envelope. It took me about 3 weeks to get through it, and I put a stamp on every one. Because that, that was a separate mailing that I did. I definitely could have saved money and time and done bulk mail,
Right.
but I chose not to. I do think that, so here's a question that I would love to ask, because I don't know. I feel like sometimes some agents go overboard with video, that it's like, if I put a video out, I'll notice like, wow, a lot of people watch my first and second video, but if I do more and more, less and less people watch it, because it's not like, so I'm just wondering, like, what would you one video a week, or like, what do you?
I think it depends on.
It's mixed reviews.
Yeah,
and
we
it
need to
depends
do
what
some
the videos are
video.
about.
We need to do video classes. For instance, I'll side answer your question. The first day I was here, I did a video of here,
Right.
and everybody says they're afraid of what to do with video. So, and everybody who teaches video says get over how you look and how you come across, just do it.
Yeah.
So I put it on and I said, here I am at our first day at our beautiful new Tewksbury office. And so it was on me for those 5 words, and then I turned it. And the rest of it was about the beautiful office. So you're still talking, but it's not on you.
That's true.
So same,
I've done that. I know you've done
same
that.
exact thing of an open house. Here I am this Sunday afternoon at 123 Main Street. Look at this beautiful home and the lovely kitchen and the spiral stair. So it's only on you for 5 seconds, but you're talking. Yeah.
You were phenomenal. You did exactly what, you were
Oh,
2
yeah.
seconds in
Yeah,
front,
that's it.
and then you showed the house.
And at the very end,
Right.
Call me if you get any
Call,
questions.
that's
Yes.
it, I give my phone number.
I did that with an
And
open
one of
house
the
at
things
a new
I-
construction.
Yeah.
And they almost caught me falling down the stairs at the end. When I turned it back on
So,
to me, I slipped.
Here's the
And
thing,
I was like,
the protocols. So you're a buyer's agent. You're in somebody else's listing,
I was just gonna bring that
showing.
up.
this is a big.
Well, it's a good question, because if you're in somebody else's listing and you're previewing the home as a buyer's agent for somebody else,
Right,
and you wanna take the video and put it on Facebook, you would have to get permission.
right.
from
Now,
them to
did you
also-
make an appointment to preview it, or are you at
Yeah.
a? So I always ask permission of the listing agent. Say, look,
Out of common courtesy.
I have a reload coming in
Disclose that
this
it's not
weekend, and I'm
yours.
going to preview these houses. Do you mind if I take a video to send to the couple in California?
So
And
here's another thing though, even different though. So what
I know
Kelsey was doing, and I said I don't have a problem with it, because the listing is public. The pictures are public, right? The listing is out there. So I said, why don't we start previewing homes, and while we're previewing them, go live on Facebook.
And
What a
tour it.
better way to be like, oh my God, that's an interactive experience for people on Facebook. So somebody had mentioned, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing this.
I would never allow you to do
And
it
I'm
with my
thinking, what are you
listing.
talking about?
Different agent,
Number
different
one,
brokerage.
the listing is out there. It's being marketed in anyway. We're not saying we're the listing agent.
I would think the majority of agents would say, thank you for giving
Yes,
me
they
free
give exposure.
advertising.
That's
Right.
right. The more people that see
For a whole
it,
different
I know.
demographic, and you know what I mean, like.
I was shocked at that. I was like, what?
Yeah.
So, I guess I just want to chime in on this. From my perspective, if I was the listing agent and you went into my listing and you did not, now I've seen this from another agent, I'm not talking about what you guys did. I've seen an agent go into a listing and say, oh, let's video tour this home. They are not and they're giving the price. They're not disclosing who the listing agent is.
Mm.
They're not portraying it as not their listing. I have a big problem with that.
Mhm.
I don't care if you want to go into my listing and say, hey, look at this, it just hit the market, blah, 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 by Dan O'Connell and Associates.
Right.
You
For
need
the
to give
listing
credit where
agent.
credit
Right.
is due, because if you went into my listing and you did that and you did not disclose, this is not my listing, this is listed by somebody else, whatever,
I would be irate. Absolutely irate, because you can see this free marketing, free advertising. You're not disclosing the due credit to the listing agent that worked very hard to put that in the market.
Right, yeah.
I
Well,
guess
but
I see
here's
what
the
you're
thing,
saying,
and if
but
you're
I would,
hold on,
I
hold
would
on. Here's the
appreciate
thing.
that.
Yeah.
But this is also them not telling the agent that they're gonna do it.
Mhm.
So if there's no disclosure that you're going in and taking a video of my listing that you're now gonna post on Facebook, and you didn't ask me or just say, hey, you know, this is what I do when I go in an agent preview, is that okay with you? It's a courtesy thing. I've worked very hard for that listing, whether you wanna see it as free advertising or not. I have a problem with that.
But like, so say for instance, like my client says, can you send me any listings in Dracut or Tingsboro or whatever that this. So I come across your listing or your listing, and I send it to him through the MLS. I
Right.
send him a public view, and the agent's not showing on there. He doesn't know that you're the agent.
Mm.
You know what I mean? He's gonna look at the pictures. I'm sending it though. I'm sending it
You
with
send
my
them,
header.
you send the
Yeah,
public,
So my
Right.
header is on the MLS.
That's
'cause
true.
It says Renee Tompkins, listing.
Same thing when you're
boom.
doing open houses, that's all your marketing for somebody else's open house.
But if I'm doing an open house, like when I'm on Dan's team, I could say that that listing at Honeybee is just as much the team's as it is Dan's, because we're a team, we all market together. I still disclose that it's Dan O'Connell's listing. I never take credit for that.
Well, nobody takes credit for their
But-
listing,
No, so, but if you're going
but I
into
am gonna
someone's
put my
house.
header on that.
Oh, no,
listing.
Oh, yeah,
that's not
yeah.
the problem, but I'm talking about going in and not disclosing someone's listing on a video, like, that, I don't think that that's okay. I think that you should, because then people can portray it as, oh, he's so busy, or she's so busy doing so much business, doing this and that, when you're falsely, you know, proposing that to people,
So
when
there's
none of them are
actually
your
a
listing.
service that, so there's an actual service that agents subscribe to, that if you're on Facebook, like, okay, there was this agent he was with Caldwell, now he was with KW, and he was always like, his Facebook was like, check out this new listing, and I'm like, this guy's on fire. Never did it say who the actual listing agent was. You would think it was him. He never said they were his listings though. He was just putting listings out there, and I'm like, wow, look them up in MLS, and none of them were his listings.
That's the
And I'm
other
like,
reason I wish.
wow,
Mm.
but there
People
was
would
an actual service that agents can subscribe to that will put these on their feed.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Really?
Yes, and it was like, wow, like, because it blocks out who the actual listing agent is.
so to kind of go at this from a different angle, the little angel on your shoulder always is code of ethics. And I think there's a lot of points to be made on both sides of this, and maybe there isn't a simple answer. But you always want to stay in good regard with the people in the towns that you work with for co-broke, for not to get off track, but I can always segue sideways. After a closing, sending a thank you to your co-broke. It was a pleasure doing a transaction with you. I hope we get to do a transaction again. How many people even do that? But
I don't want.
but it's the same thing about the courtesy. Maybe it isn't an MLS rule or something like that, but it might be a courtesy to say, do you mind if I take this or whatever. I just think it's going the extra step if you do
Right.
decide to do that. Just because different people might have different opinions of whether it's right or wrong, and you don't want to offend the one
Right.
person who's going to have a problem with it. You might get 20 people that don't have a problem with it.
But I think it's right. I think being courteous and just asking.
Yes, I always
Just
ask.
say, would you mind if I?
And I'm all for that stuff, but it's just like when you, I mean, disclose.
Well, the second time you did a video, you said, this home is
In
being
the
marketed
video.
by Century 21.
Or whatever.
I'm here previewing it today, and I'm showing you the listing.
Perfect.
So
Yeah, see,
I thought that was like,
That's good.
I guess it's when you leave it in the gray area of who it belongs to and
Right.
who you are to that listing is
Or the
when.
first one, I put it in the description of when I
Yeah,
posted
and-
it.
Yeah, you could
Mhm.
even tag, like if the team has a page or if they have a page to say, you know, listing courtesy of Dan O'Connell and Associates. You know, something as simple as that. So, because I've seen it happen with agents where, you know, someone's gone in and taken a video of their listing and portrayed it in a very gray way, that it's neither hers nor theirs. you know, and the agent got very upset about it, and I can understand that. Because if I'm not aware that you're going into my listing and taking this video, and my clients see it on Facebook, who's it gonna come back
That's
to?
true too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even just about like other agents and stuff, it's also about protecting your clients, where it is public and people can go look at pictures and things like that. A video is a little bit different, I think.
Back to video, and we will be doing more classes on that this year. Just a side note, there is a company called rev.com, rev.com, where you can take a video that you've made of an open house or of a property, and for, I think it's $1 a minute, they will add wording to the bottom of the screen of every part of your video.
Like a banner, almost?
Well, it's whatever you're saying is converted into the words.
How do you?
Rev.com. It's a
Automatically does
free
it?
app. The app is free, and then it's $1 a minute for the conversion. You just send them the video, and they turn it around pretty quickly.
So it's like subtitles.
But yes, it is.
Wow, that's pretty
But
cool.
what's really nice about it is how many times have we all looked at a video at work or something when we can't have the sound on, and so the
Well, and that goes back to making it also accessible to maybe people that cannot hear and things like that.
Of
where
course
they
it is.
need
That's
the
very
subtitles on
inclusive.
Facebook for videos, or
Sure.
they're not able to watch them.
You can do that, if you have an iMac though, you can do that right through your iMovie.
Oh, really?
Oh, I always forget about that app.
Never used that.
so
I
back
use the iMovie app for our cover photo on
Really?
our professional page.
back to the PowerPoint. This goes back to these same pages are in chapter 1 of Stacy's book, and I'm sure it doesn't even list all of the things that we do, but you know, if you want to make this part of your listing presentation so that people understand.
Well, one thing
All
too
that
that
we
I
have in
said
there.
to the team is, when you're getting ready to sign a listing, preview every property that's within a 1 mile radius or
Yes.
whatever of that house, because you wanna be very rock solid about what the competition is.
Yes.
Even if it's under agreement, I would still go and call the list agent and explain, is there any way your seller would be okay if I could just do like a 2-minute quick walkthrough of their house?
That's a good thing to do, because again, that only adds to your confidence and knowledge when you're speaking to the seller and saying, well, I saw these 2 homes that are in your neighborhood that are selling and whatever. But this goes on and on about, you know, following the entire transaction through from beginning to end. 4,200 minutes, I think I said 46. How much does an attorney or a doctor or a mechanic or a plumber charge per hour? My marketing fee stays the same no matter how much time, effort, or marketing dollars I put into reaching our goal of sold. And that's true. You might get a listing that is sold in 3 days and you put very little time in, and then you might get a listing that has gone on forever and the people have been very needy and you had to go speak to them personally and because they didn't do email, you know, so it all balances out. And so to have a fixed compensation for your unlimited time is interesting.
Here's the point, so if a seller of, you know, a $700,000 house happens to say, why am I being penalized by having to pay a percentage because I have a nicer house, then, you know, why would it cost me so much more to sell my house than it does a $300,000? If you're gonna do the same thing for me that you did for that $300,000 home, why am I paying you so much more to sell my home? Because it's nicer. Right, that's a valid thing. And typically what I say is, and you've got to keep it extremely positive, which is challenging, is the pool of buyers that are looking for homes in your price range are smaller. So the marketing it does actually have to be more dynamic to catch the eye of those discerning buyers.
Absolutely.
So there will be more marketing events, such as a sip and see, or, you know, whatever, a broker, right. So there are additional things that go along with it. Also, the cost to professionally market a home of this size is more, because the square footage is more, right?
You're gonna pay more for.
But ultimately, they go back to, really, is it double? You know what I mean, like, cause that has been something that's come up, and it's, I just try to keep it as positive as possible, but it is an issue.
And then it comes down to, you know, how professionally are you gonna represent the $300,000 house versus the $700,000 house?
And then,
You know.
I would say do accompanied showings on those higher end homes.
Yep, make sure nothing's getting broken
So that
or
they-
things like that.
Yeah,
So the time spent is actually more than double.
Yep, and if you cater
That's
a
true.
broken open house, you know, even if it's Panera or whatever, you know, that's still money out of your pocket for the food. You know, drawing all of that in the marketing for that, so it's,
I
like you
would
said,
say
very
like,
dynamic.
you could have like I always like to say with the higher end properties, marketing them, making the open houses more of an event, so have a poet, have, you know, have, like a guest speaker or something, make it more of an event to draw people in, a piano player. or
having the drone photography or the twilight or sunrise. The twilight one is beautiful for a more beautiful home.
something.
All right, we're going to try to get through the rest of this. Sold. We want to have an exclusive in the listing contract in case our friend or neighbor wants to buy it. I agree that it's important to be thorough when we are filling out this contract. And let me ask you this. Why haven't you already sold the home to your company friend or neighbor? No one has made an offer. Your personal marketing hasn't worked, and that's why you're hiring me. Is that right? If my marketing works well enough to convince your friend or neighbor to buy it, isn't that why you are paying me in the first place? Aren't you hiring me to let the public know your home is for sale and convince people that they should buy it? Why would I cut my commission if my marketing works?
We had that case, Wendy listed a house in Wilmington, and I was actually with her at the listing appointment, and the couple said, we want our neighbors already offered us, expressed interest, so we said, well, what has your neighbor offered you for the price? And I think they said something like $360 or $370, and we ended up selling it for $420. So we said that's actually, if you want to take that little, you know,
Yeah.
we know we can get you much more.
That's
so.
crazy.
Yeah.
The last agent never showed our home himself, and neither did anyone else from his office. Oh, I always loved that one. Anybody want to read?
I'll read. Did they promise you that they would be showing your home nonstop? Well then, I can appreciate what you're telling me. I, for one, will not promise that I'll be showing your home. I'm going to market your property to the top 25 agents in the area that sell 80% of the real estate. Did you want me marketing your property to the real estate agents that don't sell real estate, or should I just spend time marketing to the ones that do?
Okay. Well, let's go back to that. Anybody have a comment about?
I can read it.
Well, no, but I think that it's presumptuous about people from your office showing it. I mean, when you look at how many agents there are in any given town from several different offices, you want to expose the property to all of those agents. Sure, it would be nice for someone from your office to do it, but that isn't something to hold against you if they don't.
I think a lot of sellers assume that you're the one that's going to be taking
Oh,
people to
I
their
know.
home sometimes.
I know.
They just assume that, you know, even she.
And I mean, does that come back to like educating your seller
Yes.
that, you know, where I am the listing agent, I have potential, and I guess this is where you could, when you're talking about dual agency and stuff, I have the potential to also have a buyer to show your home, whether it's somebody that I get a call that doesn't have an agent, maybe I have a previous buyer that I've been working with previous to listing your home, and it's something I think that they'd be interested in. But please understand that I am probably not going to be the sole agent that will be scheduling the showings on your home. 10 out of 10, it will most likely be agents from my company, different offices, different companies, whatever it may be, because we work with everybody.
And of course, that's when you get into a discussion about showing time,
Yeah.
that it's such a secure company, and that you get notified the minute a showing request has been made. What I do is when I see the request, I call the agent and I introduce myself and say, thank you for making an appointment. If you have any questions while you're at the property. And so again, I tell the seller this. Go ahead.
I actually just had this happen with somebody. We had a request come in through showing time after you know, a buyer had driven by the listing essentially and got out and was kind of looking at the house, and you know, that can be a little bit creepy to some people when there's no appointment scheduled and things like that. You really can't help what a buyer is gonna do if they're gonna go canvass the neighborhood that they potentially wanna live in. And so immediately after that, we got a showing request, and my seller was freaked out and was like, you know, is this agent real? Like, do they do business? And like, so they were a little thrown off by the buyer just being there, you know, just a sensitive seller, whatever it may be. Everybody's different. So she was very like on edge about this. So now a showing came in and she was like, ooh, you know, so we had to explain that showing time, you're a vetted agent, you know, you have to be registered with showing time, you have to have a license to work with them, you know, and when that's coming in, they're keeping track of who is doing this. So we get it on our end, but they have it on their end as well. So you can you should expect that there's not gonna be an agent that's just gonna walk into your home. They're not getting the code unless they're getting it from me on
That's
showing
right.
time, you know.
And the other thing about showing time, we're gonna have them come in and speak in February and March as well. Any specific instructions, this is another confidence thing when you're speaking to your lister. Any specific instructions that you have to give, they will repeat to any person that's showing the house, whether you have a new baby that sleeps 10 to 12 and 2 to 4, or one time I had an elderly dog that had no hearing in a cage in the kitchen, so we wouldn't startle the dog walking. It was an unusual thing, and but you know, whatever the circumstances might be, whether it's take your shoes off or leave all the lights on, or make sure all the lights are turned off, or you know, whatever it is, they will repeat it every single time. So you're protecting your seller in that respect as well. All right, next one. We want to try selling it ourselves, and again, we're going to talk more about for sale by owners in the coming weeks. Anyone want to read?
I totally understand the thought of trying to get a home sold to yourself. Part of what I do as a professional is spending time contacting other agents and potential buyers. I ask them if they would like to buy your home, or if they know someone who would like to buy your home, or if they'd like to sell their home. This is what I consider active marketing. How skilled are you at phone solicitation? Have you ever done it before? Open houses, social media ads, and flyers are great, but those typically do not get the home sold.
So again, we're going to talk about this when Matt comes, but again, back to Stacy's words that work, there's wonderful scripts in here to help you explain that to a prospective seller. We'd like to meet 2 or more agents before we decide on who we will choose, and Renee just talked about this. Renee, you can do this one since you had the good comments about that.
That sounds reasonable. How will you be comparing agents? What differences will you be looking for? Will you be comparing them based on events they can control, years of experience, marketing plan, etc., or events they can't control, like marketing time and market value?
So we talked about that. Renee admitted that she suggests that, and Stacy does too, that it actually can prove to be valuable to you if they compare you to somebody else, and then they're going to realize that you by far outshine what the other agents were talking about doing. But again, that goes back to the listing presentations and all of the aids that Stacy has put in Jostle, and having the confidence in knowing what you represent and what the company represent when that call comes in and they say, come list my house, that you're prepared for that. And now is the time in January to get all of that stuff in place. Next one, I don't want to do those repairs before I sell. Let the buyers do them themselves. Well, this kind of goes to what we were talking about before. Oh, again, let's say the carpet is very worn, not holes in it, but just worn out and old. You know, do you have them take the carpets up and perhaps there's virgin hardwood underneath it? Or do you say, let's just acknowledge this and give credit toward?
I think it comes down to knowing your client's
Yeah.
intentions,
Yeah.
because I've thought in the past, I mean, in my first year in real estate, I would always take the stance that, no, don't spend the money, I don't want to cause you any other stress, we'll just market it as is, and, you know, And maybe that, you know, again, just ask the question.
Are you
Are,
willing to?
would that, you know, are you open to making some improvements that might increase your net sales? Or your net price at the end of the day? If they're open, then definitely make the suggestions and have them do it. Bring in some people that can give estimates or suggest, but, not asking the questions and just making the assumption
Right.
is not the way to go.
Well, and so when you ask that and they say, yeah, you know, we're willing to do some repairs, do you ever see a seller go, you know, we're willing to make repairs up to like $5,000. Anything after that, you know, we wouldn't like to spend anymore. Is that something that you see from sellers a lot, that they'll put a price point on it? Or does it come down to maybe what the actual work is that needs to be done?
I think again, it all comes down to really being specific in your qualifying when you have them on the phone. And then, so if they say, yeah, we're open to that, and then just say, so for instance, like if I were to suggest that you replace a counter, would that be something you're open to, or is it more like just having a room painted?
Yeah.
Like where,
How drastic?
because I
are
really
you
want to
willing?
know, like, I think learning from failure, but not necessarily failure, but just learning from experience about getting so specific with your questions, so you not only pretty much have a rock solid idea about what you're walking into, because you've done a drive-by, you've checked the appraisal card, you've asked them every single, what if this were to happen, you know, you are so thorough on what you're walking in on, that will only serve you better.
Yeah, I like the idea of asking that question, because that's not something I thought to
Yeah.
ask, you know.
I think-
I
Yeah,
would
but
address
only
the
30%.
real eyesores, like if there's something that's gonna be a real turn-off for a potential buyer that's very noticeable, that's something that I would try to address and say to look at it as an investment, and it's not really, you know, what you're spending, the cost, and you can try to look at it as a small investment and also take note of odors. If there's a, you know, strong odor because the rug is so soiled or pet smells, you want to make sure they take care of those things too, because
Those are
people,
huge.
Well, here's
Yeah.
one thing you
Smells.
can do, another thing, so say you're dealing with a unique situation. We have a listing on the market now, and unfortunately, there's odor in the home, and it's a sensitive thing, so, but, give the showing agents a heads up. That's really the best, like, if you feel like you're in a situation with a seller,
they won't work.
that it's too sensitive of a subject, it could be divorce, it could, you know, whatever the situation is, they're not either available to address it because they're not getting back to you or whatever. I would just give the showing agent, just say, listen, here's the scenario, just wanna give you a heads up,
Yeah,
maybe talk to your
definitely.
buyer, let them know, you know, what they're walking into, that's all you can do, I mean.
The other thing about talking to the seller about the possibility of repairs that might be needed is it might be just a conversation that you have with him that you don't actually put, seller will do a credit for carpet. And the reason I say that is what's important to one buyer might not be important to another. You might get a buyer that says, this carpet's worn out, who cares? We were going to rip it all out and put hardwood in anyway because our kids have allergies. Or the bathroom might be more important to that buyer than the carpet even is. So what I'm saying is don't make a judgment on the eventual buyer. Have the conversation, get the seller to have an open mind that there might be some issues that come up. Just so that you've had a beginning conversation and say, we won't know until we get a buyer and see what they say about things, yeah. Or it may come up as a home inspection issue as well. I want open houses every single weekend until it sells.
I just did this.
I'm doing that right now.
So we were in this pattern in one of our listings, and I said, reel it in with the open houses. I said, here's what's happening. We're not getting showings because every weekend we're having an open house, right? So here's what happens when you have the open houses. You might not always get the feedback you want, right? Buyers don't want to be confrontational if they hate the house. They don't want to, they feel like they just don't want to share that negativity or anything. So they think of it as not being nice. So they just leave. So when we stopped doing the open houses, took a few days, but we started getting the showing requests. which.
I think
because
that's a great thought, yeah.
Sellers were
I
like,
had thought
oh
of
my
that.
God, we're not,
Thank you
why
for
aren't we
that.
getting any,
Yeah,
why aren't we getting any showings? I'm like, cause we're doing open houses, they don't have to book showings, they
Yeah.
can just come on the weekend.
They're
yeah,
readily available at
So,
that time.
if you wanna command an action, you gotta change behavior to get, to do that.
or do a
That's
midweek commuters hours, open house, I mean, in the spring it's easier when
Spring and
it's,
summer's good,
yeah.
winter,
no.
And can I just throw this out there, just because this came from experience, so thank you for sharing that, because I just went through doing open houses every weekend, and we weren't getting the showings that we had hoped on this. However, I did a New Year's Day open house, regardless of the fact that it was on a Tuesday, I did it 12 to 2. I had about 10 parties
Yeah,
come
that's
through,
amazing.
and they said, you were one of the only agents that's working today.
that's why you got it, because
And
you were that.
Excellent.
I was that different
Yes.
open house.
You probably get a listing as a result of it.
So that was the best foot traffic that I had seen come through. And mind you, we were doing double open houses, Saturday, Sunday, you know, every weekend, which now hearing you say that, I kind of regret doing, because we were getting minimal showings. However, we were lucky enough that a couple that did come through the open house was the one that put the offer in on it. So, you know,
But
we
again,
got lucky with
the
that.
upside with the open
Too
houses
many
is,
agents.
if you can pick up a buyer here or there,
Right,
get jackpot, you know? The challenge is, sellers don't wanna hear that, they could care less about your business, they just wanna, you know, but yeah. And another thing too we experienced, which was interesting, we weren't getting showings, sellers weren't feeling like we were marketing it because we didn't have the directional signs at the end of the street.
oh, we just talked about that
My
yesterday.
experience with direction, I paid a lot of money when I was actually with Coldwell, I got a fair amount of them. Town came and took them all.
Yeah, we talked about that
That's
yesterday in
what
Code of
they did.
Ethics.
They
Yeah.
took one of our
So
signs.
I'm
they
And you
put
have to have
sign up.
permission from the owner, wherever you're putting it, at the edge of the street,
So I do recommend getting permission, but.
yeah.
So now I have a question with that, where towns technically own a certain footage on the front of your property.
So we're talking about directional signs at the, I know,
And open house signs. So I've never had this problem, like at my listing that I have now, there's, you know, a fence on their property line and probably like less than 4 feet or so of, you know, yard that's not
Right.
fenced in between them and the street. I always put the sign there, I've never had a problem. But like I've put a sign, you know, one that like sticks into the ground that's directional in the town of Westford. And I've done it a bunch of times, and then one time a town official drove by, saw it, and called us and said, if you do not get it by like, you know, we had like 24 hours, we're gonna take your sign.
At least they told
You
that.
don't get it back, this is your only warning, and we're gonna fine you.
ooh,
And so we had to go take it down, and, you know, they kind of had like a little target on us at this point, that if they saw any of our signs where they weren't supposed to be, they would call us and tell us, we're taking your sign, you're not getting it back.
yeah.
At least they
And that was
told
how
you
they
that.
played
No,
it.
and
I've had
each town is
towns take
different.
mine,
Yeah.
just take my signs.
I had that happen in an open house too. All right. Next one. I'd like to write an offer that is 50,000 below asking. Let's see how much we could squeeze out of them. Casey, you want to read?
Making a low offer seems tempting, but let me ask this. If you make an offer and lose the home to someone who makes a higher one, what will you do with the money you saved? I just want you to consider this. What's more important to you, owning this home or saving money? From my experience, I can tell you that I oftentimes see sellers take less than asking, but that's when they are coming down to market value. When a home is priced at market value, those homes typically sell at market value, and sometimes even more.
Comments?
Let the market chase you, don't chase the market.
I always though, it goes, in my mind, it goes back to who are you working for? And working in the best interest of the buyer, understanding that you're not working for the seller, then I always say, it depends on the property,
Yeah.
right? Number one,
I agree
how
with that.
long has the property been on the market? Has it come back on and off? You know, how many times has it been listed? Do the sellers have a place to go? Have they already moved? Is it vacated? Does the agent have any offers? Has it been on, and how many have they received and not rejected? Find
Right.
out as much as you possibly can, and then come
Show
up with a
them the
strategy
homes
for the
that-
buyer.
Well, and I feel like it
Right.
comes back to
how long has this house been on the market, and what comps were used to
Yeah.
price it at that point. So if it's sat for 3 months, we'll now look at the comps that are on the market that are still supporting this house, but maybe not the price. And sit down with, I always do CMAs for my buyers. I will never ever tell a buyer off the top of my head what I think. I say, you know what, let me go do a CMA so that we have a solid foot to stand on as far as pricing goes, and we can talk about it from there and see what it comes back at. So, you know, that's a good way, because it's not what you think as an agent, it's what the market is telling them and telling you, and this is how, you know, and then if you do that to an agent and say, you know, it's 50,000 below asking, these are the comps I used, you know, this is why our buyers are going in where they're going. Almost giving them a little bit of an explanation in a sense, because some agents don't do that. Some agents just say, sure, we'll put in whatever you want. But be the agent that takes that extra step and, you know, provides the client to your buyer.
Validates where the thinking was coming
Improving
from.
the value to your
Yeah.
buyer. It has nothing to do with the seller.
I would still though, I would do all, absolutely do all that. I would find out as much as I possibly could about the seller situation, the property. Still put in, so if this property's been on for, 90 days and, I feel like, yeah, let's try to get that lower offer for you. But let's also have the discussion, once I found out there's no current offers on the table, it's still available, the sellers have moved, yada, 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 then yes, we're gonna submit an offer. I might ask if the sellers are open entertaining less than asking offers, but in this case, probably not, because obviously they're moved. I'm pretty sure they're willing to
And
entertain
also,
whatever.
you're gonna say to your buyer, the seller has 3 options: to accept, reject, or counteroffer. You know, we can make your presentation, but if he feels that you're too far apart, he may say no, and then we're back, we're not out of it, we're just back to the drawing table again.
Yeah, it's all about educating your buyer, and everything
That's
is
right.
obviously situational too, you know.
Right.
But it's just saying, you know, I respect that you wanna put something in at this price. This is what the market is showing us. How do you feel now about, you know, now seeing this price? Are you still willing to maybe lowball them if it's still $15,000 off? You know, are
Absolutely.
you willing to take the risk of just being flat out rejected by the sellers?
There's
Or
no stock answer. I mean, it really, like,
No.
It's
it
all
depends on the
so
market, it depends
situational.
on the property.
Yep. I think we will wait to buy. We just want to jump in when the prices are rock bottom. Get that one? Believe me, we all want to jump in when the market bottoms. The question is, how will we know when we've hit the bottom? The answer is when the market goes back up. We will never know when the market is at the bottom, just when it was at the bottom. So the question is there a benefit to buying the home before the market bottoms rather than after? Yes. I mean, a lot of clients claim that they are the Wall Street executives, that they understand the market trends. And I don't ever think there's any easy answer. Even all of the people that claim to be experts that'll try to tell you where the market's going to go this year, I don't ever think that there's an easy answer to that. Lower rates, more inventory to choose from. You can take your time. In a seller's market, there are typically bidding wars and you have less time to make decisions. Boy, we've experienced that. Buying now means you can enjoy your new home sooner. For sale by owner, again, we're going to go over this in a couple of days. We had a bad experience with our agent, so we are going to sell on our own. We talked about that earlier today. But we're going to talk about that in much more detail next week. We want to hire you, but we must list at a higher price. Okay, go ahead, somebody.
So, Mr. Seller, let's pretend you were going fishing and the fish were down here. Where would you want to place the bait? Down here, right? Let's say that we place the bait up here. Are we gonna get nibbles? Doubtful, right? Yeah, we may get one fish to stray from the pack, but the odds of catching the fish are not in our favor. Here's the reason I'm using this analogy. I'm recommending that we put the house on the market for $150,000 because based on comparables, that's where the fish are. If we price it though at what you're suggesting at $160,000, I'm not saying that the house won't sell, but it's not probable, so the choice is yours. Or, if your house is worth $150,000 and we were listed at $130,000, what do you think would happen? Right, we probably have buyers knocking down the doors to get in. If we listed $150,000, we're gonna get an average number of buyers to get the house sold in the time frame that I showed you because that's fair market. So if we go above fair market, we're gonna have fewer potential buyers because of competition from other homes. It just weeds out more and more buyers. If we listed it for $200,000, we'd have maybe one, if any, right? So the higher you go, the fewer buyers. The fewer buyers, the longer it takes. Well, my concern is that when a house stays on the market for too long, it gets stale. For example, let's use bread. You know when bread stays on the shelf at a supermarket for too long, what happens? It gets stale, right? When a house is on the market for a while, in a sense, it becomes stale. The agents don't show it as much, they start to lose interest. It becomes back burner stuff because it's stale. When is the best time to sell? As soon as you put it on the market. You want to package the house in its best light, the price, its appearance, everything. If we already know, Mr. Seller, that in 30 days we're going to come down to the price that the CMA is now saying we're better off starting out that way because a house is never hotter than when it first comes on the market.
I love that.
That's a good one,
When
yeah.
is the best time to sell? As soon as you put it on the market.
Mhm.
But the biggest story that is missing here is when bread goes stale, what happens? It goes on clearance. It gets reduced for like
Yeah,
money,
yeah.
you know,
And then it becomes croutons.
and then you start chasing the market with, yeah.
Again, back to Stacy's book about that point, there is a point in there about how you are marketing it. Are you marketing it in the reality of where it should be, or are you marketing it a little bit aggressively? Some people in this market last year had marketed it a little bit aggressively so that they would get,
The listing.
so that they would hope to get the multiple bids and get more for the house. Or they were that confident that they were doing that. That's a whole different concept to look at. Thank you guys. You were a great participants in this. And we covered a lot of ground today. But it's all to get you to thinking of being ready to listen and acknowledge the objections and then be ready to just go on from there. Okay, next, whatever it is. And have that confidence. We need to write that 500 times on the bulletin board. Tomorrow we will be talking about mortgages, getting your buyers ready for a mortgage, what to do and what not to do, and having those scripts ready for them as well. So thank you again for today, and we look forward to tomorrow's class.
Thank you.